Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
Oh, thank God Mark McGrath is here to save us.
And if he knew grilling meats in a van was something that he was allowed to do, his life would have been different. Much different. Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear and jinkies and zoinks and all that stuff.
Oh my goodness. Welcome back, everybody. This week we are taking a look all the way back. It is the 20th anniversary of the film that James Gunn himself says changed the course of his entire life, Scooby-Doo from 2002. People been clamoring for it, and it's about time we got it to them. You know what I'm saying?
We're tired of all those. When are you guys finally going to cover Scooby-Doo? All the emails, all that stuff. Thank goodness we can put the clamor to bed.
I've got a lot to say about this movie, surprisingly. Like, I didn't think I would. I thought I would just kind of like veg watch this movie, but there is a lot to unpack here with this movie.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before, and
you hadn't. You've never seen it.
No.
Wow, first time Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I'm aware of who Scooby-Doo is, mind you. This is not like, who is this brand new Scooby-Doo character?
Never heard of. What is this dog? This dog who sort of talks,
kind of,
and can read. That was the part that got me in this movie. I was like, he's reading the signs of where the hamburgers are. Like, he literally did. He's reading signs. I was like, Scooby-Doo can read?
You can, who knows what that guy could do, but we'll go through all of those fun things and talk about the movie that kind of launched James Gunn and everything. Before we do that, though, we do want to say a giant thank you to everyone that supports us over at patreon.com/HMP. Like we say, it doesn't matter what support level you show up at, you get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and of course, you get to vote on a movie that we watch every month. And of course, it is Patreon selection time, everybody. And we got a little bit of a theme going on this month. It's the theme is R. Basically, all of these start with an R. It started off as a dumb joke, and it continues on here. Here are your Patreon selections for you Patreon people to choose from. We have Red Sonja, RRR, RIPD, Red 2, and Ratfinkaboo. That's a real thing. It's on the internet.
Ratfinkaboo is classic.
What?
And you were calling that Mexican Batman?
Yeah, but I don't know that it's Mexican, man. That might have been culturally insensitive. Like, it might just be a bad, cheap movie, and for me to call it Mexican is rude.
No.
Latin Batman.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's Latin, man. It might just be bad at cheap Batman.
Uruguayan Batman.
It might be Russ Meyer Batman.
Actually. Listen, if that's the case, maybe Ratfinkaboo might be the one that we need to choose. No, it's not. I don't think it is. So make your choice maybe a little bit
Pack
more
full
wisely.
of lusty ladies.
We've had people, on Twitter and everything. We talked about in like probably a pre-show or a Dinger Zone or something. Bruce and I talked about RRR, and I had a big story about people I'd heard had seen that movie and everything and stuff. So they were like, hey, y'all need to put that on the list. So here you go. It's there along with all these others. But we leave that choice up to you. Patreon.com/HMP. Again, doesn't matter what level you get to vote on it. And we actually have Larry Trujillo, our good buddy, is back over here on the Patreons. He has jumped up at the $20 level. So Larry, we want to say a big giant thank you to them. For that one. And Sean, I don't know if you have this one ready. We talked about it, but I'm sorry I forgot to drop it on you a little bit earlier. But we do have a lot of things that have been going on for the last couple of weeks. So we've had this one kind of, on the docket a little bit, but we haven't got it finally out here. But Patreon supporter coming in at that $5 level, Anthony King, you thought we forgot about you. We did not. We're back here again. Sean, do we have something for Anthony?
I do. You just got to let me punch it up because I had totally forgotten.
I was vamping a little bit more, and I'm sorry. I should have gone a little bit more.
Hey, I've still got Thumbtack in the holster, as we discussed last weekend.
Oh boy, that's what people love, is when you just have like names that you just have on a spreadsheet.
This one fell out from underneath the bed. We figured you might want to give it a shot.
I meet somebody for the first time, and they say, "Hello, my name's." Don't even tell me your name. I've been looking for somebody to call Thumbtack. It's you. You are Thumbtack.
It's because you're always sticking around and nobody likes you, or they're poking you in alleys. Go ahead.
So Anthony King, when I did a search of your name, like for famous Anthony Kings, there's a couple of people who come up. There's an author There's I want to say a producer, but the most interesting one is Anthony King, the basketball player. And Anthony King is someone who he was good. He played for Florida, Miami of Florida. And he was an undrafted NBA player. And he ended up going to Cyprus to play basketball. And he has set every record in Cyprus for basketball, for professional basketball. And I did not know this, but do you know what? That's an unfair question. I hate when people do that to me. Because I know the answer.
Don't
I'll
you
ask
know
you
it,
if you know
moron?
it. You idiot. This thing that I just read 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I knew it before you did.
You probably don't know this, but a resident of Cyprus is known as a Cypriot.
Cypriot.
And so
I didn't know that.
you did, and you corrected me. So you don't just know comic books, folks. So say that, announce that name again.
Cypriot. At least if you're a Cypriot Greek. I don't know about the Turkish side of Cyprus, how they pronounce it, but the Greek side, Cypriot.
So Anthony King, your new HMP nickname is the Cypriot.
That's
Nice.
Very good. And you get a story along with that when people when they go, well, what's that again? You can lay it on them and it's good. That's nice. Very nice.
I also have coffee mug if you don't like Cypriot. So
just pick whichever one you like.
I've been wanting to call somebody coffee mug for a while.
I tell you what. Again, thank you to everyone who supports the show. Please vote over at patreon.com/HMP. Let's get into it, boys. Here is the trailer for Scooby-Doo.
Where have all the heroes gone? When the world needs a champion against the forces of darkness, who will answer the call?
I'll have whatever he's having.
From Warner Brothers Pictures,
Mystery Inc. reunites.
Scooby and his crew are back on the case.
Run! I'm trying, buddy.
And now, on an island of mystery,
Welcome to Spooky Island.
they have
Monster! The monster?
no clue.
We're here to solve a mystery.
Rory. I got bad feeling about this.
Creatures are taking over the world? That is so mean.
Scooby-Doo! Where are you? Get up! Raggy! Scooby-Doo!
This year,
Who's your best buddy? Raggy. That's right. And who's my best buddy in the whole wide world? Ruby-Doo.
many heroes stand tall,
Now who's the damsel in distress? Me? Straight up.
but only one stands on all fours.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Scooby-Doo.
No one is stupid enough to believe that.
Who's the ugly old broad?
All right, that was the trailer for Scooby-Doo. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Scooby-Doo comic books. What do we got, Bruce?
Well, Scooby-Doo first came to life in 1969. Nice. When it was created by a couple of Hanna-Barbera guys named Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. And don't you think it's weird that those guys worked at Hanna-Barbera instead of rival animation studio Ruby Spears? Things just happen, I guess. Now, anyway, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Debuted on CBS in September 1969. And Fred Silverman, who was the head of the daytime programming at CBS, well, he said that after about 15 drafts, somehow a Great Dane was the star of the project, which may have been a first in the children's mystery genre, which up until then had been dominated by the likes of Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. But of course, when Ruby and Spears stumble upon a concept, or a well, you could say, well, they ain't too proud to keep going back to it. Because while at Hanna-Barbera, they also created Dino Mutt, the Dog Wonder, Help, It's the Hair Bear Bunch, and Jabberjaw, which absolutely isn't underwater Scooby-Doo, but more like Speed Buggy with a shark. But Scooby-Doo's origin starts in the most unlikely of places, or more specifically, with the most unlikely organization. Because in 1968, a parent-run organization called Action for Children's Television began protesting excess violence in cartoons. I guess they were really disturbed by falling anvils and rocket-powered roller skates and maybe, just maybe, the occasional malfunctioning pile of TNT. So the aforementioned Fred Silverman responded to the parents' concerns with the Archie Show, featuring bubblegum pop band The Archies. This show was a modest hit, so he thought, hey, why not another show like Archie? But this time, the teenage band solves mysteries. He also thought, and Dobie Gillis is a good show too. Kids love Dobie Gillis, so let's give it a touch of that. Which is probably why Fred is a lot like Dobie Gillis. Shaggy is absolutely an animated version of Maynard G. Krebs, and Velma has just a little bit in common with Zelda Gilroy. But one thing Dobie Gillis don't have was a talking dog, so that's where Scooby-Doo had him beat. Now, the original concept for Scooby-Doo was called Mysteries 5, and the dog played the bongos. And I feel like we really missed out when the percussion element was struck from the concept. But the bongo-playing dog was going to be named Too Much. And they couldn't decide whether he should be a large, cowardly dog or a small, feisty one. So all you Scrappy-Doo haters can suck it, because he wasn't an add-on. He was there from the beginning, in theory at least. Now, once the decision was made to go with the large cowardly dog, there was a debate as to whether the breed should be Great Dane or Sheepdog. The fear was that a Great Dane would be too similar to Marmaduke, and a Sheepdog would be too similar to Archie's pet sidekick, Hot Dog. Somehow it took the intervention of Barbera himself to commit to the Great Dane. Now, the show pitch featuring Too Much was rejected for concerns it might be too scary, so the concept was reworked. They dropped the teenage band angle. They decided to up the humor by focusing more on Shaggy and the dog character. And the coup de grace happened courtesy of old Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra. Now, Fred Silverman was listening to Sinatra's Strangers in the Night on a red-eye flight to a development meeting. And when the gibberish words, doobie-doobie-doo, were being crooned at the end of the song, well, that's when he had his eureka moment. He decided to rename the dog Scooby-Doo and retitled the show Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And of course, the rest is television history. Now, no time was wasted in getting Scooby onto comic book pages. Gold Key Comics began publication of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Comic books in December 1969, just 3 short months after the cartoon debuted. Gold Key published 30 issues over 5 years. Then Charlton Comics published Scooby-Doo for 11 issues in 1975, which means in an alternate timeline, there may be a Watchmen character based on a dog. From 1977 to 1979, Marvel Comics published 9 issues of Scooby-Doo. Then Harvey Comics published reprints of the Charlton Comics as well as a handful of special issues between 1993 and 94. In 1995, Archie Comics began publishing a monthly Scooby-Doo comic book, and pretty much every comic book company other than DC had a run at Scooby-Doo. That is until 1997, when Warner Brothers DC Comics acquired the rights to publish comics based on Hanna-Barbera characters, and DC's Scooby-Doo series continues publication with DC to this day. The most recent title was a cool series called Scooby Apocalypse, in which Scooby and the gang are trying to survive on a burnt shell of the earth. And speaking of burnt shells, Adam, do you have a list?
I do. If that comic connection wasn't enough, let me sell everybody on this 20-year-old millennial time machine, because this sucker has everything. We got Scooby-Doo for a new generation. Travel back to 2002, where everyone was as thin as a rail. Keep the snacks in the pantry, because you're going to feel like a fatty on this one. We've got Matthew Lillard at his most memest, top shelf from Sarah Michelle Gellar, and the reason I'm sure Sexy Velma is a thing, Linda Cardellini, yowzer. We got the most beautiful Puerto Rican blonde you've ever seen in your entire life in Freddie Prinze Jr. You gotta love it. We got the guy from Friday the 13th, Mr. Bean, drug references, Spooky Island, swinging blades, fake ghosts, real ghosts, Sugar Ray, which almost made me want to turn this off and set my television on fire, but I've grown a lot, so I didn't. We got food chomping, skateboard riding, grease slipping, soul switching, the virtues of being a team, and a villain so chilling it will leave you breathless. This movie has everything.
So you were saying beforehand that you had never seen this movie before.
Correct.
And Bruce, had you?
Oh, yeah, I'd seen it.
because I had seen it as well. I've seen it probably 2 or 3 times. Like, keep in mind that my daughters were young when the movie came out, but once it hit, like premium channels and stuff like that, they were very interested in this movie. So they saw it a few times. It wasn't one of their favorites, but they did watch it, and I watched it a bit. I think that you've probably heard me say in the past, because it was one of my favorite mantras at the time, is if you were going to cast Daphne and Velma, do not cast Velma with someone who is one of the most beautiful women in the world. And at the time, that was definitely the case. So, like, you've got, like, depending on your type, and my type is her type. I remember seeing this movie in the movie theater and thinking to myself, why did they cast an actress who is so much hotter?
I'm gonna go down a little road with you on this, because I think that's the perfect way to cast Velma. Now, from Dennis Miller's generation, what is he, a boomer? Is that what you would call Dennis Miller?
And he's like between. Yeah, he's like in between Gen X and boomer.
Yeah, that's why it's like I wasn't sure what to call his generation, but I know it's not mine. But Dennis Miller spent a lot of time like talking about, did you prefer Ginger or Marianne? Right? Sure. Like that's the thing. I associate with Dennis Miller, though I'm sure lots of other people did that too.
Yeah.
But I think for me and my generation, which is, a little bit mid Gen X or whatever, for me, a lot of conversation was Daphne or Velma, because I had plenty of friends that, just like the smart guy knows you pick Marianne over Ginger, right? Like that's a sucker's bet if you ask me. Well, we all knew, like, Velma had the short skirt, not Daphne. Like, the animated Velma was always hotter. Now, her haircut wasn't as good.
Her haircut was awful. Are you kidding me? The haircut's what kills everything.
From the turtleneck down, Velma wins. And I'm serious. Go back and watch those animated cartoons. Velma wins from the turtleneck down. And I got no problem with glasses. I wear glasses sometimes.
Hey, listen, if you're a butterface cartoon character, who cares?
No, she's not. She's lovely. It's just the haircut could, it wouldn't hurt to not have.
Hey, man, sometimes the barn needs a coat of paint. We understand what you're saying, Bruce.
It looks like the berries and cream guys, the haircut you have.
So the watching it yesterday, I was floored by a couple of things. Because I'm basically coming into it fresh. I probably haven't seen this movie in 15 years. And quite honestly, the only thing I could remember is that Scrappy-Doo is in it. Like, I couldn't remember.
Let me tell you something. That was such a surprise and a joy for me. I loved it so much, having not known that and everything. And here's the thing, where I am, I'm 40. So, like, I'm that kind of, like, elder millennial, like right at the end of Gen X. I would not consider myself Gen X, but I don't really like dump myself in a lot of millennials, because I'm that border kind of thing as well. So
you're the Dennis Miller of your generation.
Exactly. But I unironically loved Scrappy-Doo when I was a kid. And I get why people dislike Scrappy-Doo, and it's 1,000% valid. But as a kid, I was just like, I don't know why I like this little dog. He's a lot of fun.
I'm with you, man.
I love seeing
how cowardly everybody was. So I like Scrappy-Doo, like, ready to stick up his dukes and go.
I mean, he was the cousin Oliver of Scooby-Doo, but you kind of liked him being there, I don't know. There's something about him.
The original concept was a debate between, do we go with the Scrappy type or a Scooby type? And then at some point they said, you know what? Too much is never enough. Let's do both.
And it worked, but having that as kind of being the villain for the piece, I was shocked and delighted by it.
And in my memory, I thought that Scrappy-Doo was saved to be the villain of the second movie. And after watching this, I realized I think that I was far too smart to go see the second one. I don't think I've ever seen the second one, but his part's relegated to the second half of this movie. So in my mind, it became he was the villain in the sequel, which is how most comic book movies would play it out.
I have seen the second one. If you want to see prime Linda Cardellini, go ahead and watch the second.
Darn it!
In a bathing suit.
She is getting it done. Let's put it that way.
I'll tell you, man. Freaks and Geeks, one of my favorite shows, and no small part because of her.
So watching it this time around, right? The two things, there's a few things that it's not two. There's a few things that absolutely floored me. One is, and I know, nerdy nerds everywhere are going to roll their eyes, but James Gunn's script is so good. This movie isn't going to change anyone's life, but this movie is far, far better than it has any right to be.
But here's the thing. When the movie first starts as well, because you have this whole action scene up front to kind of, just get everybody's juices flowing for the movie, right? And it starts to feel like it's going to be kind of crappy. Like you have because there's no real story that's being developed at this point, and it's like, oh no, this is not going to be good. And then when it gets to the story, you're like, nope, James Gunn is still behind the wheel on this one. You can feel it. And then once it gets rolling and the story starts flowing, I'm like, oh crap, this is actually a lot better than it's not amazing, but this is a lot better than I would have imagined it to be.
It has the structure of set up and payoff, and they do it time and time again. Just as like a brief snapshot of what I'm talking about here. Think of all the times that you see Fred with that rope, where he's like messing with the rope and pretending to use it as a weapon. It happens a lot in the movie. So when it happens at the end of the movie, it's not like, well, that came out of nowhere, because you see him doing it the entire movie. It's set up and payoff and set up and payoff. And that's one of the things that makes this movie hum. That's pretty great.
Yeah, everything that's put somewhere is checked off later, and it's something that not only informs what will happen later, but then furthers along the character and the story itself, which is, in movies that are let's be honest, aimed to 8 to 12-year-olds, not usually the case.
Right. And, for a movie that has 5 main characters, to have every single one of them have a story arc is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they needed it. I mean, in a movie like this, everybody, does Scoob have an arc? I don't know. Scoob and Shaggy are like Batman and Robin. They almost count as one character.
But he does have an arc, because his whole thing is that because they keep it. I mean, it's a small arc, but they keep saying well, you guys do what you guys are going to do. Like you're the smart one. I'm the leader. She's the one who's always a hostage.
You guys are the ones that hold the bag.
You guys are going to do whatever it is that you do. And so when all that goes down, you learn, what you start learning is that, oh, actually Scooby is the heart of this. And so he's learned his purpose by the end of the movie, is that he is the heart and soul of this group. And so, that, I'm not saying that it's some remarkable thing, but at least he has one. I can't tell you how many times in modern movies, what is the story arc of Dom Toretto in 7 of the 14 Fast and the Furious
movies? Very angry.
I can tell you, his story arc is, he looks exactly like John Cena, right?
Yes.
While they're spitting images of each other.
They're twins, I tell you.
So that was a very surprising thing, because this movie didn't have to have that, and it does. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is Lillard himself, because I remembered him being good in this. He is on fire in this movie.
Yeah,
he is amazing. He is going to be remembered forever as Shaggy, and he should be, because the work he is doing in this movie, no one will ever outdo this role. You might have a different take on the character, but you're never going to be this version of Shaggy again.
Was there a 2 or 3 year period where Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard were a pair? It's kind of like how Franco and Rogan were, or something.
They kind of got lumped into the same group of people, because they all came from, that CW or WB UPN TV show world,
and kind of always a little Wes Craven adjacent with some people, and there's a lot of those kind of.
I don't even know where Freddie Prinze Jr. came from, other than I know his dad was Freddie Prinze, but Like, I don't know when he first came on my radar.
The big thing, it's like the late '90s Miramax stuff. Like she's got a game. She got to have it.
I know
that's a Spike Lee
last
joint.
summer looks like was probably when I first would have really picked up on him. I'm looking at his filmography here, but Adam, you probably knew him from his guest role on Family Matters.
Oh, listen, I mean, come on. I am trying to figure out what role that is now that you're saying it, and I'm drawing a blank, and I'm very ashamed of myself.
He absolutely would have came on my radar for I Know What You Did Last Summer. And that's probably where he met Sarah Michelle Gellar, I would imagine.
I would imagine, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like a guy that I feel like I've always known him as a guy who's cool with being like past his prime. But I realized like he was actually in his prime when he came on my radar. And I already felt like he's like, yeah, I'm cool with being a former teen star. But I don't think he was ever actually a teen star.
I remember when like this was announced that he was Freddie and everything, and it was like, and I don't have a dislike for the guy, but it seemed like a very odd and weird choice and everything. And at the time, it looked like, oh, he's just doing this so he can be in with his girlfriend and stuff. And again, like I said, I didn't watch the movie, but watching it now, he is having so much fun with this dumb role.
They all are.
It's so great.
Every single person in this movie is having fun making this movie. I mean, even Rowan Atkinson, who at times, like, I mean, he's a treasure and he belongs to the world. Yeah. But at times that man is in a movie and you're like, well, he clearly does not want to be here right now.
Yeah.
Checking out that series where he's chasing a bee or whatever. I haven't checked it out yet, but you know, I don't want to spoil it. I want to savor it. I want to make sure I have plenty of time to enjoy it when I sit down to watch it.
I can remember distinctly seeing him in, I think it was the second Johnny English movie where because it was on, you know, some channel somewhere. And I was like, oh man, he really, really does not want to be in this movie right now.
I saw him in some movie where people were like racing across country or something.
Yes. It's the update for It's a Mad World. It's
kind of a terrible movie, but I liked the part in it.
Yes.
And I liked it. Was Tom Arnold in it maybe? Anyway, somebody was in it and they made their kid poop out the window of the car because they didn't want to stop.
There was somewhere in the 90s, Tom Arnold was probably weaseled his way into it somehow.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Scooby-Doo. Sorry.
Right. So Lillard is just, he is just the best.
I became a big fan of his in a movie about baseball called Summer Catch. Mm-hmm. He played a character named Brubeck, and Freddie Prinze Jr., I'm pretty sure, was in that movie too. And after that, like, I was really excited that he was playing Shaggy, and I kind of was real fond of him for a while, but then, you know, his career was made for a 5 to 10 year period, basically.
Yeah. And, you know, he got a little older and he didn't know how to transition. And I know that he tried some serious stuff, but he's just not that guy. And that's fine. You know, like, be a character actor, be a flavor to the dish, not the main course. And so I think that he kind of found exactly where he needed to be at that time in this movie. Like he is, everything is based on this.
I looked at his filmography and he's getting a ton of work as a voice actor.
Yes.
Like,
well, they all are.
But I mean, him, I didn't know this about him. He plays Shaggy now. Like, he is Shaggy, and where Shaggy pops up. Like, apparently in Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms, Shaggy is a playable character.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, like,
it's voiced by Matthew Lillard.
This movie like really launched the whole like Shaggy meme thing, and like it has become I think, like I said, there's millennials that are older, or excuse me, rather younger than me, who grew up on this, who were just like the right age. And you know how, like, I mean, I watched the Adam West Batman and everything, but like, when, you know, Burton's 89 Batman, that was my Batman. Like, I knew the other one existed, but for these kids, like, they're aware that the old cartoon exists and everything, but this is their Scooby-Doo, and like that, this was a very formative film for a lot of those kids, and I was always kind of surprised to hear that, but now watching it and everything, I kind of understand it.
Yeah.
I can't, but just watching this, well, I got a whole couple of things to say, but first off, just watching this reminds me of what an unpleasant aesthetic, like 1998 to 2000.
Well, okay, we'll get to that right now. So one of the things that is a boon to this movie is that they're on actual sets. Like, it is impressive. The scope and the size of the sets
things were
on this movie.
built for this movie.
Yes, and it looks it and it looks real, and it's kind of great. What is not great is that it's 2002, and so everything is awful. Everything looks terrible.
I'm not gonna lie. There's because 2002. I'm 21, 22, whatever. So it is. This is perfect. Like this is a capsule of my kind of like later teenagers, early 20s and stuff. It's so good.
And I feel like it started about 1998 and it ended about 2008. Like it wasn't exactly lining up with Y2K, this like trend. But then also like mentally, there just might be something like once you graduate from college, pop culture seems to go to crap because that's the first time in your life like you're old enough to start to feel nostalgia and you're finally kind of just a little bit out of like the hip tastemaker high school college age. So by 1998 I'd been out of college a couple years and stuff just started to go to squat, man. But also a lot of like my memories of what the late 90s were like post 93 or 94 are actually the early 2000s when I go back and look at it. But it just almost had like a feel where it didn't even quite have its own identity. Like Sugar Ray seems like a creation of 99 and like 2000 we'll just ride that out for 10 years or something. Like there's just a weird feel about how that first few years of the new millennium just didn't have its footing down.
Yes, I agree. And there's a bit of rudderlessness happening during that time too. Like where are we headed? You know, like because 9/11 had happened, and so there's a little bit of like what do the next 10 years bring?
Yeah, we're trying to get our sea legs back at this point. Going like, is this good anymore? I don't even know if this.
Right.
Okay,
like
sure.
There's this weird thing where you still want that edgy, extreme 90s thing, but in a post 9/11 world, you don't want to be too edgy or offensive, so you get like fake edgy.
I will say this though,
that's where Limp Bizkit comes into play.
But this movie, I love the fact that this is a PG movie that feels like an old school PG movie. And in as much as there's tiny little things that they kind of get away with, a little bit here, a little bit there, that kids aren't going to recognize. You don't have to point them out or anything. They're subtle enough for all that stuff. But it's enough for the adults in there as well to just have a little bit of extra fun for you.
Totally.
And I like that.
Totally went over my head back when I was in my 20s. But watching it now, there's some subtle references to cannabis with that character named Jane.
What?
And I'm not being funny. Is her first name pronounced Isla? Or
Isla Fisher.
I think
Fisher.
it's Isla Fisher. Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't realize that's who that character was until I watched it this time around.
One of the funniest things you will ever see in your life is if you watch the commentary track of Superbad. Because is she in Superbad? I can't remember. She's in. I can't remember. She's in something with Bill Hader.
I just know she's married to Borat. So I started thinking if instead of Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, what would Sacha Baron Cohen bring?
Well, there'd be a hell of a lot more menace to that characher. But
that would be it'd be an interesting choice.
It would. But so to get to my point here, right? So Bill Hader and Isla Fisher are in some movie, and maybe I'm wrong about Superbad, maybe it's something else, but she's playing an American throughout the entire movie. And so when they cut to interviews with the cast, she is speaking with her regular tongue. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of off-putting because in Scooby-Doo, she slips a little bit, but in whatever movie it is, she has a perfect American accent. And then they cut to Bill Hader and he is speaking in the same accent that she has.
That's awesome.
It is so unbelievably funny. And it's never brought up. No one explains anything. It's just interviews. It's so good. Anyway, so to get back to Scooby-Doo.
I just want to make everybody feel comfortable. I do that. I do that code switching. You get up to somebody like, your New England family and stuff like that. I know you start to go into a little bit. I do.
I totally do, but I don't even mean to. It just happened.
It's just like, this is
you should have been with me on my trip to Jamaica, guys. It was embarrassing.
Oh, man. Let me okay, half a second. Have you seen the...
Hot Rod was the movie, Sean. I couldn't help it. I had to look it up.
Have you seen
Rod,
the what's his Tom Hanks kid doing the Jamaican stuff? He's actually really good at it. It's like kind of unbelievable.
Is it Colin?
No,
or is
Chet.
It
So
Chet, the one who invented White Boy Summer.
Yes, White Boy Summer. Chet
is
Hanks,
the sad one.
He got on like some MTV Music Award or something and just started going off in this, Jamaican patois.
Awesome.
Everybody just goes, "That's terrible," and all these Jamaican people are going, "Yeah, but for real, he's actually really good." They were like, "It is so on point." It was not somebody being racist. They were just like, "That's impressive. That is very impressive." He's that on point with all of his Jamaican slang. Unreal. Anyways,
so back to Scooby-Doo. The aesthetic is terrible. It looks awful. And like the smartphone hasn't come out yet, so there's none of those jokes there yet, which is great. Yes, which is great because they would have been in this movie for sure. But
Freddie taking pictures of himself all the time.
Of course. The biggest thing about this movie that it has against it is the crimes against humanity of the soundtrack of this movie.
Come on, the crime against humanity was the year 2002 in music. I mean, there was 6,000 songs to choose from, and maybe 3 wouldn't piss me off.
It needs to be in front of a tribunal, is what I'm saying. It is the worst. It brings down the movie, and it's not like the movie is amazing, but it is good. It is a good movie, and to have this soundtrack just like an anchor around its neck, it is awful.
I'm trying to remember what movie it was, but there's this movie with that like is on a tour, like on a cruise ship or something like that, and then Little Richard shows up out of nowhere, but and performs a number, and it's really, really good. This is like the opposite of that. Yes. Sugar Ray shows up, and you just want to die. It's
my Lord, man.
so bad. And
oh my God.
And first of all, also I don't know. I saw this video years and years ago of Mark McGrath just like laying into some kid who probably talked a little bit of smack to him, and I understand, whatever. And Mark looks like
on Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah, he was. Well, no, this was before his Entertainment Tonight stint for sure, and he was probably pretty hammered from the looks of it and everything. And this kid just gets berated by him, and I'm like, that's just, I don't know, it always struck me bad that he was just that rude to somebody, even if somebody's a jerk to you. It's like, that kid didn't deserve all of that. And so I've always kind of soured on that guy after I saw that video. But if his music didn't do it for you, that video would. But man, I am very. I hate it when a song with 2 chords becomes a giant hit. I'm like, what? What did you do? It's 2 chords.
I know. Can't you break out the 3 chords? I remember everybody talking crap about the 3-chord bands, and then you get 2.
And some of the best stuff that made it onto so many late '90s records, and I don't know why. Record scratching for no real reason.
Oh man,
there's nothing that's going on between like Sugar Ray and Hanson, and there were a whole bunch of groups where it would just for no reason. Doesn't need to be in the song. And I look back and I just want to go, are you happy with that? Are you proud that that's what you put on the record? Okay.
But on the bright side, there was a Baha Men song on the soundtrack.
on the bright side.
But it's not even a good
It wasn't Who Let the Dogs Out. That's the trick.
That's when you know it's over for the Baha Men, when it's just the one that you don't know.
Yeah, is that the song where they basically rap what happens in Scooby-Doo at the end of the movie?
Scooby-Doo, yeah, that's
man, that's great.
Their follow-up song, I Ask You Again, Who Let the Dogs Out?
There's also an Uncle Kracker song, so it's not all bad.
Oh man, Uncle Kracker. That's another one where you're just like, boy.
Uncle Kracker was all about the covers, man. He has no time to come up with an original song. He did an Uncle Kracker cover of Freaks Come Out at Night for this soundtrack.
I'm just telling you right now, there's a big long desk and there's glasses of water, and a lot of people are wearing black armbands around their right arm, and they're talking about the soundtrack to this movie.
I believe we can get Uncle Kracker in here for a pretty low price.
They got Little Romeo.
I forgot Little Romeo was a thing. You know who Little Romeo is, right?
Master P, son.
That's correct.
Because it's Lil Romeo featuring Master P, and the name of the song is Lil Romeo's Bee House, which samples Brick House by the Commodores.
Do yourself a favor and go see Little Romeo's episode of Cribs. You'll just want to kill yourself.
Do you think it's cheaper to
How is that a favor?
You think it's cheaper to get the Uncle Cracker cover of Freaks Come Out at Night or the original song Freaks Come Out at Night?
I think Uncle Cracker and cheaper always are going in the same sentence together.
No, man, if you could get Lil Romeo to do a cover of Uncle Cracker's cover of Freaks Come Out at Night, that one they pay you to put on your soundtrack.
It's like, please take this away from us. You own the masters. Just get it out of the building. It's haunting us.
So another thing that I want to say that's good about this movie, because we've been bagging on the soundtrack pretty hard, but one of the things that's great about this movie is the mysteries themselves, right? The mystery itself of this movie works. Like it is an actual mystery, and it is a surprise at the end of the movie.
It is a little bit of it's a little bit fan servicey to Scooby-Doo fans. Like who is going to go watch this movie and not know who Scrappy-Doo is? Probably nobody. But I feel like it. Why am I talking about this like it's a serious movie? But I feel like it is a little bit detrimental on who the big villain is, because if you're not steeped in Scooby-Doo mythos and lore, you don't know the canon.
Are you purchasing a ticket for this?
You're wrong because they have that setup in the movie
when he pees
early on, where they kick him out of the van because he wants to be the leader.
I'm going to ask you this question in all seriousness, because people were messed up mentally in 2002. Was it supposed to be kind of like titillating that a dog was peeing on Sarah Michelle Gellar? Like, I think I got the idea that it was supposed to be like for the adults, like, haha, look at this.
I think it's more just a kids like pee pee poo poo humor.
I don't know. I felt like it was trying to do some double entendre here.
The way that it's shot, it sure looks like this was someone's idea. Like, I got a note. And it's like doing it for him, like it does feel that way to me. It does not feel like, haha, this is hilarious. It's not shot like that.
Red reacts to it.
Yeah. It's not shot like this is so hilarious. It's shot like,
well, they all are acting odd, which is like, there's certainly that.
So there is that part. And I think that, look, you can be into whatever you're into, but the way this is shot, it's not shot for funsies and it's not shot for a joke. And so like that is problematic for sure. It's not the only thing that's problematic about this movie, although I was surprised how very little problems there are in this movie. They address that Daphne is always getting kidnapped. It's part of her story arc. It's great. Like that's very good. The fact that they treat Velma and Fred as equals instead of some mouthy girl,
Yeah,
like I like that
she
part
adds
too.
a lot to it, and he does, eventually realize, oh yeah, you know what? I take too much credit for this stuff. I don't share it around when it should be shared around, and he learns to become a less selfish person.
Right, but the selfishness doesn't have anything to do with sexism. It's just selfishness.
Right, it's just him being like, I'm great. Yeah,
right.
Some of the wardrobe is maybe problematic in as much as just fashion into like, just go ahead and do a Google search of women's jeans 2002.
Well, sure. But
yeah, there's like, I understand the concept of a bare midriff because your shirt is short, but in the 2000s you had a bare midriff because, well, your pants barely covered all the bases.
We didn't need full pants in the late 2000s. Come on.
It's weird fashion choices. The pants that I remember back then. And I'll say in my 20s I was pro low-rise pants, but now I understand that I shouldn't have been.
Well, you saw the course correction where everybody was getting mom jeans for a while there. But there is a couple of things like, they sure do. The camera does linger from time to time, which isn't awesome. But
especially I thought with the Mary Jane, the Isla Fisher character.
Yes, but the big one is the Miguel Nunez character. that is a problem. the only African American character in this movie is a voodoo practices voodoo
maestro. Yeah.
Yes, that's not great.
I at least like that he continues to stay with his game. He's always on the voodoo tip, no matter what's going on. He's just like, hey, you're interrupting my voodoo stuff.
And you guys may not have recognized Miguel Nunez, but he is the famous Juana Man.
Yeah,
I like recognized him from that.
Yeah, he's one of those dudes who has been in like literally like 100 something. I
didn't realize he'd been in that much.
That.
But,
yeah,
but I thought this was like this is the world I exist in. But I thought, hey, that's Juana Man. He's too big for such a small role. I mean, he carried a franchise. The Juana Man-chise is what I call it.
He did do Juana Man before he did Scooby-Doo. So like this was the
anticipated follow-up.
This was
like
after.
He should have held out for a higher role.
Damn it, I wanted to be Scooby.
I mean,
oh man, that would have probably, I don't know, would that have been a career breakthrough or extremely problematic? Like they don't CGI it. They just make Miguel Nunez put on one of those like Party City Scooby-Doo outfits and say row raggy a lot.
Speaking of Scooby and everything, the CGI is not fantastic, but like Lillard sells what he's doing so much that you have this connection between a person and a dog. And we've all talked to our dogs, and most of us, not like Bruce, but most of us have talked lovingly to our dogs in the past. So like to have that dog be able to talk back, there's just something sweet to that. And I know James Gunn's a big old animal guy and everything like that. Yeah. So I know that that comes from certainly a place for him.
It's got a lot of heart, this movie. Like it really does. And it's kind of interesting to see that it starts off in such a dark place because, usually that's the end of the second act. And to have it start that way is pretty great. And it kind of flipped it on its head. And again, having seen this movie several times, I had totally forgotten that happened. And maybe because I just didn't expect anything, I was very surprised with the clockwork of this movie. Like it really is like, not only do you have that big mystery in this thing, but you have the thing that happens in every Scooby-Doo episode where they're about to solve the mystery. They have a plan in place. The plan screws up and then they make it happen anyway. They did that twice in this movie and it's done really well. Like it's not something where like you're rolling your eyes at it. It's like, oh, that was very clever the way that happened.
And James Gunn has enough faith in the audience and everything to that in first entire scene, while a big giant action scene informs everything. And within the first under 8 minutes within the thing, we see the group break up. And we completely understand it. We know all, because what you know about Scooby-Doo going in the back, what little other bits you might not know, they've peppered enough into there. And you're already invested 8 minutes into this, and they've split the group up. It moves so darn fast that to me was what was so impressive. They're like, oh, we're not lingering in any of this because you know what? You know what Scooby-Doo is. If you're seeing this movie, you got at least a passing idea what this is. So we're going to just bang through all of what almost could be the first entire movie, Yeah. And we're going to do that, and that's the opening scene, and then the movie's actually going to start, which is kind of just genius.
I think some of that might be why I remembered some of this as being in the sequel, when in fact, I'm pretty sure I never saw the sequel.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr.'s kids call Matthew Lillard Uncle Matt?
Oh, I would imagine
call him Uncle Shag.
And also, can I say I am so they're still together, aren't they? Those two?
Oh yeah, man,
for
20 years,
so long, and it makes me so happy, and you can just tell watching this between the two of them. I don't know. It makes me happy those two have been around and together for so long in Hollywood.
I've got to say, I was not the biggest Freddie Prinze Jr. fan in his heyday. Mm-hmm. I thought, you're a little underwhelming as an actor. You're just super handsome, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But as an elder statesman now, I love him. I think
because of his image, he kept it under wraps just how much he's into the same stuff we are.
Yes.
Like, as he got older, he was able to embrace that, and that's why I think I like him so much now. I mean, is he Ezra Bridger? I mean, he does.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
Star
he's
Wars.
not Ezra. He is Kanan Jarrus.
And I mean, he did do Wing Commander back in the day, I think, but
Yes.
he does Star Wars voices. He was on a D&D type actual play streaming TV show I used to watch on the old DC streaming network. And I've seen like candid stuff where he's, like playing the games, being candid, not playing a role, seen him in interviews. And he genuinely seems like a nice, pleasant person who really likes this stuff. And I think that's probably a secret to the marriage, is that he didn't go out there and try to stay a leading man. He kind of was happy with a family.
Yeah.
He worked with what was good for him and everything. And the nice part is that, like, when you see him and Jon Stewart, those are the two people that, like, you would think on the surface, like, oh, sure, they like Star Wars, but like they're way bigger fans than you would ever expect them to actually be. And when you hear them talk about it, you're like, well, shoot, that's pretty impressive. Like, I like, my respect for you has gone up even further. That, like, you, like, especially like, Freddie just being that kind of guy, and just like, no, I know all of this crap. I don't just do a silly little voice on a show and get paid for it. This is something that I am into, and I love that. And the same thing with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart knows more about Star Wars than I would have ever imagined that guy knows about Star Wars. Because when he asked that question, you're like, a person that's not a Star Wars fan wouldn't write that as like a funny joke, haha question. This guy knows way too much about Star Wars. But to me, that's what, like, it feels that Freddie Prinze Jr. from maybe even this point on just kind of said, you know what, I may not be, like you said, that leading kind of character actor always, but I can be this guy who goes in and out and does these different little projects and stuff, and, like, I don't know, it seems to be working.
Well, the two things that really make me like him now as a person, as he's gotten older, is that one, he is not pretending when he says that he doesn't, like, he puts his family first. Like, he's been offered 1 million roles and he doesn't take them because he would rather be dad. Like, the reason why he does so much voiceover work is because it doesn't take up too much of his time. Yeah. And the second thing, and this really, really put it over the top for me, is I saw him in an interview once where they were asking him a question about Star Wars and they were trying to trip him up. And he not only knew what they were saying, he corrected them on their question. And I was like,
oh, I love it.
And I was like, and he wasn't a jerk about it. He was like nice and like smiley and, like just made it like it was a regular question. But that question was put in there to try to trip him up, to show like, oh, he doesn't really know Star Wars that well. And he, not only did he answer it, but he corrected the question. It was so awesome.
I love it when that stuff happens.
Oh, man. And I was just kind of looking at the filmography for both Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze, and I cross-referenced it. Their first child was born in 2009, and for both of them, that was pretty much the last films they made. Now, they've done smaller stuff since then, but like, they were smart. They both had enough money. They could have kids and be full-time parents and do voice acting roles and, less demanding stuff. You got to admire that too. And it wasn't like one parent gave up their career and the other one kept working, because that leads to resentment too. I think that's the secret of how they stayed married. They had kids and both essentially were able to cut back big time on work.
Let's be actual regular people and everything like that.
Yeah.
Which is big. And just honestly, go watch some videos of Matthew Lillard at conventions. You will just cry your face off. These little kids coming up to him and stuff. Oh my, I'm tearing up thinking about it. So let's go ahead and let's start with the whole. We got to get to the end of this show. So before we review this thing, we need to find out how this movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Stallone. Sweet Chauncey back again. Turn up the music. Let's begin. This week, I could easily drop how you're connected to Scooby-Doo through its writer, James Gunn. You've worked with him twice now on both Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and The Suicide Squad. But what I'd really like to talk to you about this week is your connection to both Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar. I don't know how familiar you are with these two people, but they've been married since 2002 and they have 2 children. And that's where you come in. Their first child is a girl, and I'm sure she's lovely because her folks are beautiful people, and it's rare when hot people make ugly people. It happens, but not usually. But it's their second child I'd like to bring up this week because that's where things get interesting. You see, Sly, their second child is a boy, And since they had this child during a time where people in Hollywood were naming their children Airplane, Flamingo, and Death Punch, they opted for something off the beaten path, yet not ridiculous. And they decided to name him Rocky. Way back in 2012, the Daily Mail first leaked the name of their baby, and it's filled with the usual things you would expect out of something like the Daily Mail, with lines like, "We hope it's not because they're really huge fan of Sylvester Stallone as the boxer who would stay down Rocky Balboa." Where do they get off? Screw you, Daily Mail. Maybe Freddie and Shelley are huge fans. That's right, I'm calling her Shelley. Are huge fans.
My goodness.
Because who wouldn't be? Isn't it weirder that they named their kid Rocky and it turns out that they really hate those movies? Yeah, we named him Rocky because we both can't stand those films. And now we named our son, who we also aren't very fond of, Rocky. We both really hate underdogs since we're both the children of remarkably wealthy families. And FPJ and Shelley have been married for 20 years. Wow. I can't say that. Although I do see that you yourself have been married to the same woman since 1997, which is a good job by you. Whenever I think of your personal life, I always think of the crazy banana 80s where it felt like you were getting married every time you made another movie. I know that's not actually the case, but I'm just saying it felt like that. And finally, I need to ask for your take on something here. Mr. Stallone, since the character Rocky's real name is actually Robert, do you think Rocky Prinz will make people call him Robert when he gets older? I had a friend growing up that everyone called Tommy, but if you call him Tommy these days, he says, "No one's called me Tommy for 30 years. And I say back, "Well, I haven't called you in 30 years, so you can see where I'd make the mistake."
Yeah.
And I would imagine that when you grow up the kid of two celebrities, you're probably the type of dude that makes people call you a different name later on in life. And that kid, Rocky Prinz, is the Stallone connection this week. And that's it. That's what I've got this week, Mr. Stallone. I sure hope I get the chance to talk to you soon. Do you think Chris Pratt is a good action star? Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Well, it is time, everybody. Let's find out. Where does Scooby-Doo land on the Robin rating system for you, Bruce?
I got to first just admit that I never really was a huge Scooby-Doo fan. Like, Scooby-Doo was the Transor Z for me of cartoons. You watched it when nothing else was on because it's not like you're not going to watch TV. I mean, what do you expect me to go outside or something?
Gross.
Bruce, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but you know what you said? You know what those people are called?
What's that? Dirty babies. I don't know, but one thing I'll say about Scooby-Doo in my youth is, like, not everybody liked Batman, not everybody liked Superman, not everybody liked comic books or Star Wars, but just about every kid liked Scooby-Doo except for me, it seemed like. I mean, I didn't hate it or anything, but it was like Nilla wafers at your grandma's house. Yeah, you eat them, but they're not your first choice of cookie. Anyway, that kind of carried through on this movie. For some weird reason, I got like really excited about this stupid movie in 2002. I guess I didn't have much to look forward to back then. And like, I thought I was kind of expecting a PG-13 vibe. Like, I was expecting kind of a Austin Powers. I was expecting kind of an Austin Powers with a little bit of that Brady Bunch movie thrown in. I was expecting something that actually wouldn't be written nearly as well, but the cheap laughs would be so quotable it got obnoxious, and you look back and say how terrible it was. That's kind of what I wanted, and then what I got just didn't hit me right back then, and I just can't help and separate that out now. Now, about 5 years ago on the 15th anniversary, James Gunn, back when he used Facebook to make announcements, had said that there was an R-rated cut of this movie initially. I kind of want to see that because I think that's the movie I wanted. That's the movie I kind of still want. Like, I don't know, and I don't want to see underwear pillow fights or anything, but I mean, I just want to see like a little more crude humor. I want to lean into all the jokes people made as a kid. You know what I mean? All the jokes about the drug use, all the jokes about, what's going on at night when that van's a rocking. Like, I just kind of wanted to know, get in things where they kind of catch Velma looking at pictures of the girl she has crushes on, stuff like that they didn't address at all in 2002. So anyway, because of that, I can't help but give this kind of kind of that Stephanie Brown for me. Like it starts off where I think I'm going to like it. And then after a little while, I realize, you know what? The CGI in 2002 wasn't that great. I'd rather see cell animation. Matthew Lillard, like everybody individually is just fine, but they just don't have me that interested. And part of it's probably just because I don't like the source material that much.
Fair enough. Sean?
You know, for me, the movie, this is going to sound crazy, but screenplay wise, the movie that this relates to most to me is the movie Tremors, because Tremors is all about setup and payoff as well. And that is what this movie is. And I love Tremors. I love it. I think Tremors is a better movie, but I do like this movie an awful lot. For me, it is a low Tim Drake. It's not perfect. The soundtrack is horrid, and it's a really loud movie too. Like people are constantly screaming and yelling, and the music is at 11, and it feels a little bit like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which is the loudest movie ever made.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's something that I noticed today. While like, especially like right at the beginning, you're like, oh boy, is it going to be at 11 the entire time? Because like I don't mind an action film, mind you, but whoo!
And you know, James Gunn wrote some great jokes that got cut. That kind of
course.
It is it's a Tim Drake for me as well. I really enjoyed this. I was kind of shocked. Like you know from memes and everything, and you know just what it is, but it was never something that I had really cared about. What am I, 20 in 2002? So I'm too old to enjoy this, and I don't care. And I'm like, no, thank you. But actually, I'm really glad I watched it, and I had a fantastic time. It's not perfect, like you said. There's a lot of things that are really bad with this, and you do realize why Scooby-Doo episodes are 23 minutes long, right? And you can. And I thought about this. I was like, if you watch back-to-back Scooby-Doo episodes, you're okay, but you ain't watching 4 Scooby-Doos in a row. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, even the Scooby-Doo movies.
You stop at 2 Scooby-Doos. You're not going more than 2 Scooby-Doos, because I was just like, because I saw it, I was like, 90 minutes, this will be great.
The only way you could get me to watch 2.
This 45 would be awesome.
Yeah, the only way you can get me to watch back-to-back Scooby-Doos was that time that the Globetrotters showed up. That one I could watch.
Yeah, give me another, or one of those ones where Korn shows up or something, and you're like, what's going on here? That's really bizarre. But yeah, it's available on HBO as of this recording and everything, so check out Scooby-Doo. That will do it for this episode of Hero Movie Podcast. We'll go over what we're doing in just a minute. But Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Just a little of this, little of that. Still doing my YouTube thing, though I've been a whole lot lighter since the whole COVID thing. I just haven't gotten back into the swing, but still getting an episode, a video or two up every week. So youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. Found out now, I think if you just Google Bruce Leslie, the YouTube channel might be the first thing that pops up. So I'm getting somewhere with that.
Very nice. Yeah, when like Hero Movie and like you put that into like, iTunes or something in there for us, and like we're the thing that shows up, I'm like, nice. That means we're doing something correct. Sean, what else?
If you want to hear what it sounds like when a television show goes off a cliff, I would say to you to listen to Obi-Wan 30 Questions, which is our podcast about said show. I'm going to be as kind as I possibly can, because no one wants to hear me just complain for an hour.
But it will be an interesting week.
But it's going to be something to listen to. And if you don't like that, if you don't like Obi-Wan, and you don't want to listen to our stupid podcast about that show, then why don't you listen to the Film Find with our boy Adam Portress?
Oh, why, thank you. And of course, remember everybody, patreon.com/HMP. Your choices this month for you are Red Sonja, RRR, RIPD, Red 2, and Rat Finka Boo Boo. We got more R's than you can shake a darn stick at over here. So please vote on those. We'll say voting wins Wednesday evening and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll put all that up there. And we'll talk about that next week. So join us once again next week for our Patreon exclusive for Sweet Sean's Go Back from the Internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
Torture you. That's a good idea. I like that one.